It's the all-wheel drive event at Lithia Ford of Boise. From hunting trips to ski trips to trips to Grandma's house. Nobody does AWD like LFB, Lithia Ford of Boise, where Ford begins in Idaho.
Eat Lux your way with the Lux Cravings boxes from Taco Bell. There's the classic $5 box, the indulgent $7 box, and a whole new obsession in the $9 box, the Flamin' Hot Grilled Cheese Burrito. Try the Lux Cravings boxes at Taco Bell today.
Find your sun with Sun Cruiser Vodka Iced Tea. Made with real iced tea and real vodka. Cold, refreshing, and made for moments like these all year long. Let the good times cruise with Sun Cruiser.
As sports fans, we may cheer for different teams, but there's one thing that we can all agree on. We want the game to be big. And with 3 levels, 30 cabanas, a 143-foot screen, 6 clean pools, and endless cold drinks, it doesn't get any bigger or any better than Stadium Swim in Las Vegas. All sports, all seasons. It's more than a pool deck. Stadium Swim. It's the only thing like it in the world.
The final buzzer is sounded on another night of Mountain West basketball, and it's time to break down the action with Tom Moser on another night in the Mountain West, presented by Circa Sports. Headed to Las Vegas for the Mountain West tournament in March? Make sure to stay at Circa Las Vegas and watch all the action at Stadium Swim, where the sports are on 365 days a year. Another night in the Mountain West has interviews, analysis, opinions after the final Mountain West basketball game of the day wraps up. All BNN broadcasts come from the Sun Cruiser Studios. Sunny days call for Sun Cruiser Vodka Iced Tea, made with real iced tea and real vodka. It's refreshingly smooth and easy to drink. Crack open a Sun Cruiser and let the good times cruise. The title sponsor of Bronco Nation News is Lithia Ford of Boise. Check out our full inventory of vehicles online at lithiafordboise.com. Lithia Ford of Boise, where Ford begins in Idaho. Did your team just get a big win? Suffer a bad loss? Come discuss it with us. Send us a comment or question in the ICCU YouTube chat, or leave us a voicemail at speakpipe.com/BNN. Now let's go to the Sun Cruiser Studios and join Tom Moser for another night in the Mountain West on Bronco Nation News.
Let's go to the Sun Cruiser Studios. What do you say? And welcome in, everybody. I'm your host, Tom Moser. This is another night in the Mountain West. Tuesday night, actually just flipping over to Wednesday, which means we're in February. So we're just about to that magical month of March. We're going to break down what we watched here on Saturday, the 31st of January. And it's funny. It feels like it was almost 2 separate days of games. It's very rare for the Mountain West to have a schedule like we had today, with the early tip in Logan, and then basically like an entire day with no action. I know technically the Fresno game was in there in the mid-afternoon for me, early afternoon for you guys, but let's be honest, nobody was really watching that game. So once the big showdown ended, which was over by 1:15 for most of you guys out there and like 3:15 for me, there was nothing for like 6 hours until the 9:30 tip-off in Laramie. So it was a very odd day. It almost felt like I could have done a show this afternoon following the big showdown at the Spectrum and then, done another one. It just felt like it was a weird setup for the day, but I didn't mind it. It just felt a little thinner because we had 2 games last night. And then of course the game early and the other game that we don't really pay attention to. So a weird setup, but nonetheless, plenty to talk about. As always, let's talk about Sun Cruiser. We are in the Sun Cruiser Studios having our Sun Cruiser. Got a message on social media today from one of our good followers, Brandon, a CSU fan, with a picture of a Sun Cruiser. I think this exact flavor that I have here at roller derby. I like roller derby. I used to watch that when I was a kid. They used to have it on TV. I don't think they televised it anywhere anymore. It's probably too violent, but good stuff back in the day, roller derby. Also, Down at the bottom right there, you see it scrolling along right now. YouTube channel at Mountain West BNN, at Mountain West BNN. Please subscribe. Okay, I say this every time. Some of you do, some of you don't. In one ear, out the other. All good. Try to subscribe, right? Subscribe. Tell a friend. Tell someone you don't consider a friend. Tell them to subscribe too. Helps me out, helps the show out, helps everything else out. Okay, so let's get to it. And somebody had said last night, a Nevada fan made a good point about not necessarily going with the last game that ended, in keeping in mind the fans that were just leaving that game. And on some nights that will apply. Doesn't really apply tonight. There were several Lobo fans at the game in San Jose. They probably had their best crowd of the year, and likely for the rest of the year too. Youth night, some other stuff. They showed Gary Payton in the crowd, all that good stuff. But I'm going to assume largely that most of Lobo Nation was watching from the comfort of their couch tonight. And so I'm going to start with that game. Some nights, if their game's staggered by a half hour, an hour, I'll go with the second to last one. So some of those people just getting out of the stadium or arena, wherever they are, can catch their game and don't miss it, because I do understand that. But tonight we'll go in reverse order. And then we'll talk about we'll obviously hit on a big game last. So, all right. Look, that was a really well played game. The big thing that we often kind of tie in with San Jose State is they'll hang around, and then eventually they can't do it anymore because they don't have enough depth or whatever. That wasn't really the issue tonight, as I trying to put the bumper on. Oh, there we go. So 90-80 was your final. Really well played game. And as I just bring the stats up for a minute, look at the one on the right side of the screen here. It's tough to see, but turnovers, 6 for New Mexico and 5 for San Jose State. You have a final score of 90-80. This wasn't a slog like the border war, low possession game that we'll talk about in a little bit, all right? This was an up and down game, a lot of possessions, okay? And you only have 11 combined turnovers. That's pretty efficient basketball. How many possessions do we have? 63 possessions and 61 for New Mexico, 63 for San Jose State. And you only have 11 turnovers. Like, that is pretty darn good basketball, okay? And both teams shot it well too. New Mexico shoots at 54%, and the Spartans shoot it at 47%. So good game. And the announcer, Rich Walls and Dick Al, probably my favorite crew, that we get consistently. We don't get your Brad Nestler and Robbie Hummels all the time on the big boy networks, but for the crews that we get, I think these two do a really good job. Walls gets it. Dick Al gets it as a former player. He understands. They don't just say stuff that's nonsense sometimes, like I heard at other points today. And I like what they bring to the table, but they said it a few times in there. I mean, look, that was as for their level, what they're capable of. That was a pretty darn good effort for San Jose State. Okay, not completely healthy. Some of their guys clearly back. Miles still kind of playing shorthanded. If you look at the minutes there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys, and then the 7th guy, Myers, got 15 minutes. I actually like Myers, but he didn't use him a ton tonight because Goddard, he made a few shots, and Overstreet played pretty well and he needed his size inside. But he has enough guys, and they played well. Like I said, didn't make a ton of shots, but they made enough to hang around, and they never let New Mexico completely run away from them. I don't think as a Lobo fan you ever felt completely in danger of losing the game. It seemed like every time you needed a made bucket, you got one, whether it was Hall or it was Bouillon or even Albury. Albury, a pretty good game, 5 assists, only 2 turnovers, 2 boards, 14 points. Jay Call, career high, 27 on 10 for 14 and 7 for 9 from deep. I mean, that's freaking efficient, 7 for 9. I mean, let's face it. So 27, and I mean, he knows how to get the ball in the net. That's all there is to it. But look, if there's Tenet did pick it up in the second half. He finished with 14, and Rock had a good second half too, because at halftime the bench was not helping. They did not contribute much. Bouillon, another double, 17 and 10. Chol's kind of become like a backseat, participant here. He's not really been a focal point lately, and that's fine as long as he doesn't force things. I mean, for him I'll take over 3 from the 3 for him, right? I've been critical of him taking too many. He attacked the rim at least a few times to start the game tonight. I was excited about that. So he's not forcing it. That's fine. No turnovers. I thought, was he a standout? No, but he didn't hurt them out there. Halp did a ton of, 7 points, 8 boards, 4 assists. I mean, it's just typical New Mexico. And I sent out a tweet. There was that one play with like 5 or 6 minutes left. Like, Bouillon tries to spin in the paint, wants to make a pass. It's not there. He loses control. Hall tips it to Halp, who's like off balance, and he scrambles to get it. And then Albury gets trapped like dead to rights in the corner. Good job by the Spartans not fouling and reaching. Albury nowhere to go, just kind of flicks it up in a prayer. Bouillon like catches it against the sideline and then drives it a hole for an and one. I don't even remember if he made the free throw anymore. But point being, it's like, any other team mostly would turn that over like any one of 4 times. And they just don't. They just make plays. Now, some of you might say, well, it was luck, but it's just being in the right place at the right time, knowing that you need to help your teammates out. And it's just kind of emblematic of what New Mexico is, right? Like you watch the game this afternoon, and then you watch the Lobos. They don't have the high-end talent up and down the roster as those two teams do this afternoon. They don't. And I think even the most ardent of Lobo supporters would hesitantly agree with that, okay? Hall's a fantastic player, very high IQ player. Halp is a glue guy that every coach loves. Bouillon's a machine, and he's got skill. But the bench, Tenet, he can do it a little bit, but he's a freshman. He's not going to be a consistent guy like that, even though he is averaging double figures. But beyond that on the bench, they just don't quite get their player for player with those two teams. But as we've talked about before, that's not where the games are played. They're played in the margins, doing those little things, sticking to the game plan, playing defense, doing making the little plays that don't show up in the box score. And that's what that possession was. And that's why this team's 18-4 and in a 3-way tie for first place. Okay. So, I mean, look, great effort tonight by the Lobos. Tough one for Miles. I mean, if they play that against anybody other than the top 3, they may have a chance to win the game because they played well. It's just tough sledding against these top teams. It just is what it is. Let me hit some of the chat here because I'm sure a lot of Lobo fans in here. Jake Cole, yeah, he's just incredible. And look, the thing is, San Jose State's forte is not their defense, okay? And I'm sure that's stuff that Olin and the team and staff have watched on film. They make the extra pass. They drive. Albury can get by his guy, kick to a teammate, make the extra pass. Hall got a couple open threes off of that, knocks him down, right? Obviously, he shoots 7 for 9, but he shot 7 for 9 because he got very good looks. Timothy, you struggle to put San Jose State away tonight. It's a road game, and you win by 10. I think it's like, are you winning by 30 or 40? Boise just beat them by 30. Nevada just beat them by 30. You didn't, okay? But they played one of their better games of the season, okay? I haven't watched them as much as I've watched the other teams, obviously, or focused on them as much. But, one of their best, if not their best game of the season, right? 100%. Pitt game on Wednesday, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, Paul, New Mexico, efficient. That's why they're in the top whatever they are of KenPom, right? Because they do things efficiently. They've cut down on it. They have very few bad possessions. I think earlier in the year, they used to have more bad possessions. I think they've cut down on it. That's coaching. Defensively, very few breakdowns. Okay, Bouillon, like one time tonight, and I'm just picking on it because when it happened, I was like, oh, man, like that never happens. He like turned his head, lost sight of his guy. Somebody cut to the basket and got like a backdoor layup or something, okay? And I'm sure like that will get pointed out in film and it won't happen again. They just have very few breakdowns. You force teams to make shots. And a lot of the shots that San Jose State made tonight, you're like, oh, even Walls on the calls, like, some of the shots are either they're rainbows or they're step backs. Godarzi likes to shoot moon shots, as Walls was calling them, and Washington likes to shoot like hardened step backs from 28 feet. Those are not easy shots for college players to make, okay, at this level. You're playing at Kentucky or you're playing at Duke or Kansas, maybe, okay? These guys are not at that level. They're good players, but they're not future pros. You're making 26-foot step backs and moon balls. You got to tip your cap to the opponent. And so let's give the Spartans some credit, okay? Yeah, wasn't their best defensive effort, for the Lobos. But again, I don't think they played poorly. I think you just have to give them some credit. Okay, yeah, absolutely, Steve. Hats off to Miles. His guys did play hard, and they played well. There's no doubt they did. Some of them. I'll get to that question about the foul at that game later on. No doubt about it. Isaac, congrats to the Spartans for playing hell of a game. As a fan, it's easy to want to blow up, but games like these help the team grow. Miles is a good coach. He just doesn't have resources. Yeah, everybody knows that. I mean, right? It's one of the toughest jobs in the country. We know about that, right? And I mean, he just he gets what he can out of them. And the injury thing we've talked about before, it's even more difficult than when you have your guys injured all the time. You're not even playing with a full deck. So, here's an interesting one. As someone says, we have to. I'll get back to that. Talk about a three-way tie. Let's see what happens in the next couple of weeks first. Is it too late to add tweaks to an offense? Watching them seems like they could add. It's funny. Somebody said that the other day, and I thought about it too. I don't know if Chol's the guy you can do it. I honestly think you can do it with Bouillon, and you can do it with Rock. Haupt is a guy that can pass from the high post. Like, that's what it's about. Who can make those passes from the high post and who can seal and use their frame to work for position. Okay. And that's kind of like what you need in a high post game, right? So put a guy at the high post that can make plays and is a high IQ guy. That's a Haupt. Chol, maybe, I don't know. But again, I think somebody asked this the other day, I don't know that Olin's interested in that type of offense. I really don't. Is it too late to add it? No, certainly not. I just don't know if that's something he wants to do, right? Like he seems to be pretty set in what he wants to do offensively, and it's hard to argue because it's their offensive efficiency has improved as the season has gone on. Okay. Got it, Timothy. So a lot of Lobo fans were local. They were family. Okay, so that makes sense because they just kept showing maybe the same batch then. Yeah, it was a well-played game. Credit to Miles. Yeah, absolutely. They're 6-15 or 6-16 now. They could have easily just not showed up, but they did. They came and ready. They were ready to play. Yeah, exactly. Ewok. Washington made some tough shots. You got to tip your cap. Yep. And Ice says it, three-way tie. Somebody said earlier, could we have a three-way tie in 5 weeks? Possible, but three-way tie for now. Obviously, that will not be the case after Wednesday. Yeah, when a CBS crew raves about the Lobo coach, we always lose him. Well, I mean, look, you got to look at it this way, Jer. Would you rather have it the other way? Would you rather have it when you had Paul Weir and nobody was raving about him and your program was bad, or whoever you want, Noodles or whoever? I mean, it's a double-edged sword, but that's just the way it is anymore, right? Like you take what you can get. You enjoy the times that you have with him, just like when you had Richard and he brought the Showtime Lobos to the pit with Dent and Toppin and Mashburn and House and all that fun stuff, right? It's a different style here, but the guy knows his ball, and you just kind of hope that some of the dominoes don't shift around out on the West Coast in the next 2 months, and you get Olin for another year. I think if you get him beyond next year, I think that's like the most, I don't even know how that would happen, but I would bet against it happening beyond next year. But, at this point, you enjoy what you have. You thank, your administration for making a good hire. You thank UNLV for bungling the hire of not hiring Olin, and you see what you can do here the next 2 months and hopefully next year as well when you're in the new Mountain West. So, yeah, Drew, I'm going to get to the Wyoming game in 1 second. Utah State going to be welcomed by a rowdy Pitt. I would expect nothing less. 14K even for 9 p.m. on a Wednesday. Yeah, I mean, look, it's a first-place showdown. You obviously have the big one that you're waiting for at the end of February against the Aztecs, likely the last game for the foreseeable future between those two, certainly in the pit. And other than that, like, this is probably you already had the Alford game. You had Grand Canyon come to town already. So with the exception of the Aztecs coming in at the end of February, this is your big game left in the pit. And so, yeah, I would expect a big crowd. Hopefully it's 14. I'd be disappointed if it's only 11 or 12. Yeah, there's no doubt Mike had to be the highest attended Spartan game in a while. Yeah, I agree, Timothy. I like to see Rock and Bouillon play at the same time. And yeah, Steve, I kind of agree with you. He's not going to change. You've wanted Chol. We've all said the same thing about Chol, and he seems to be okay with the volume 3. So anyway, look, that's another thing. With knowing that showdown was ahead, no sign of, you couldn't have told who they played next based on how they played on the floor tonight, which is fantastic, right? And I know some of the Lobo fans in here, whether it was last night or Wednesday night or Tuesday after the last game, said, that Olin won't allow him to have a letdown. And yeah, like in theory, that makes sense, right? Like, yeah, Olin's a very good coach. He seems to be very detail oriented with this stuff and not going to allow his guys, like I've said, Richard had, to overlook some teams that they weren't as good as, like they lost to the Spartan team last year in San Jose. And, I don't know, maybe San Jose was a little better last year. Maybe not. And the Lobos were probably maybe not quite as good, right? And you lost in that arena last year. And so, it's easy to say, well, Olin isn't going to allow that, but it's still up to the players to go play, and they did today. So you got to give them credit. They've earned they're not going to have any days off, but extra day here with the game on Wednesday instead of Tuesday, so they can sit back and just kind of get themselves ready to go for what will be as Jared said, and I'm sure everybody else knows, a rowdy atmosphere in the pit on Tuesday night. Okay, let's go to the other one that just ended at night here, our other nightcap, and that was the border war. Again, last one scheduled for now in Laramie. And so I had said last night that this was pretty much last call for Wyoming, not in terms of having to win the game, like for any tangible reason, right? Like they're not going anywhere in terms of heavy postseason play. Is it possible that teams could opt out of some secondary tournaments and they could get in somewhere? It's possible, right? It happened last year with San Jose State. Somebody pointed out the other night. We really don't know if there's going to be several teams ahead of them in the pecking order. Let's just say the top three teams get in a tournament. Nevada and GCU playing the NIT, I guess. Let's just ballpark say these things, right? Is Boise going to opt out of something? I don't know. Who knows, even with Nevada and Grand Canyon. I thought they would go in, but maybe not. Like Grand Canyon has aspirations of playing the NCAA tournament. Maybe they don't want to go into the NIT, okay? Sundance would love to play in a postseason tournament with these guys. And he would, just really want to have that opportunity. So, yes, they're playing for that. But, this was a game that I'm thinking you really got to show up and play well. If it leads to a win, great. But you got to have some effort and heart here after getting blasted the last few times out, really. And they did. You could tell right from the start they were engaged. They were ready to go. There was a little extra juice in the building, knowing that who knows if and when they'd like to continue this series, but who knows how it's going to play out. Maybe they only play once in Fort Collins next year, and then they have to wait 2 years to play in Laramie. Who knows? And so I'm sure there were some choice words in the locker room pregame, in the practices the last few days from Sundance about the rivalry and about CSU leaving and not staying in the conference, or whatever motivational tactics we know Sundance, I'm sure, was happy to use to get his team fired up, and it showed. On the other side of the coin, CSU, man, they were flat. They were flat. And, they made a little bit of a charge, and then at the end of the first half, and then they played okay in the last few minutes, too, to kind of rescue it and cut it down to whatever margin they cut it down to, 7 or whatever. But, I mean, look, the first thing obviously you have to say is this: the Cowboys shot out of their rear end tonight. Okay, they are a 32% 3-point shooting team. Okay, they're a 32-point 3-point shooting team. Let me put these stats up here just for a couple minutes. 32-point 3-point shooting team as a group. Right, tonight they shoot 12 for 25, 48%. Now we've heard this from every announcing crew all year. Like whenever CSU has a game, this is the number one 3-point shooting team in a conference and number blank in the country. And, they never add in the fact that they were number one for a large portion by a wide margin early on in the season, and they've massively tailed off here in the last month or 5 or 6 weeks, okay? Pasquarelli's gone blind all of a sudden. He can't hit water from a boat. What was he look at that. He was 0 for, I didn't even know that. He was 0 for 8 and 0 for 6 tonight. All right. He couldn't miss. He was automatic at the end of November and early December. And now if he fell out of a boat, he'd somehow end up dry, right? He can't do anything right. Rex Steiner, 2 points, 1 for 5, 0 for 3. So like those guys, the announcing crews of every game will tell you that they're the number one, blah, blah, blah. They never add in the fact that those guys are cold as ice right now. They can't do anything. And so, like, this isn't the same shooting team. It's not the same team that they were in November and December, right? The Jorgensen injury didn't really have any impact on those guys. Butler was okay tonight. Bemba didn't really have a massive impact. Jorgensen was okay. Their best player, honestly, was Muniz. He had 7 assists. He had 14 points on 5 for 12. Now, Jev taking 12 shots is a little much. He shouldn't be taking 5 threes. He was 1 for 5 from deep. But look, I mean, he only played 24 minutes. Really don't understand why Ali has taken Jev out of the starting lineup. He's by and large been their most consistent and best player, with the exception of Jorgensen. I know Pasquarelli had his moments, but again, he's been pretty bad lately. Butler's okay, but he has a ceiling, and he's just kind of steady Eddie. Bema's been okay. Booth has been up and down. I mean, I got to laugh at MacIver, right? Like MacIver, and I'll get to Wyoming in a second. I just want to finish on CSU here. MacIver has been bad. Like, I hate to say that, but he's been one of the worst. And I'm not even looking at metrics or any of that stuff, just my eyes, which is how I do stuff, right? He's been one of the worst players in the conference, okay? And Ali continues to run him out there, probably because he's a freshman and wants to see if that's going to be his guy next year at point guard, right? With Muniz gone, and ideally if Pasquarelli and Rex Steiner are back, those guys play off the ball where they can get shots. And MacIver, he's been not very good, okay? He can't play defense. He doesn't give you much offensively. And this is like a week-long thing now, okay? It's like anytime he comes in the game, the opponent goes on a big run. And he finally, makes a shot tonight, makes a three-pointer. You're down 15, and he gets a technical for taunting. I mean, I don't expect that out of a CSU team. I don't. And again, it's Ali's first year. He'll clean that up. But that's not what you need to say, right? Like, let's focus on some other things instead of making some gestures that are taunting when you're down by 15. So anyway, they shot 4 for 23 from the 3. And so look, I will talk about Wyoming and how they shot in a second. But the fact is that with 5 or 6 minutes left, Colorado State was on 38 for the game. That's pretty bad. And he likes to play slow. They're playing at a very, 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 very slow tempo. Okay. And I'm going to look it up as I'm talking here because I haven't looked it up in a while, what their tempo is on KenPom, because it used to be one of the slowest in the country. And I'm sure it still is because I watch their games and they play slow as molasses. Okay. But that needs to change, I think. I really think that needs to change. They need to go back. They need to start playing up tempo. They are 365 in adjusted tempo on KenPom out of 365 teams. So they play at the slowest tempo in the country. And I don't know why. I don't get it. He's fully healthy now. If he's going to run guys like MacIver out there, he has both of his bigs back. He's got other guys that he can play. I just don't get it. In the last 5 minutes, and I know it was a scramble mode and they were playing up tempo to try and get back in the game. But during those last 5 minutes when they're playing up tempo, they had some things going to the basket. You make the defense move a little bit. You keep them off balance. When you take 26 seconds off of every possession, not that the defense doesn't have to work, but man, it's you got to try something different anyway, because they're not playing very good basketball. I thought when they played up at Boise a week or two ago, I thought that they were going to turn the corner here, and now it hasn't really come to fruition. And this is going to be a tough loss to swallow here against a team that was really struggling too. So, look, it's they weren't going anywhere anyway, which was pretty clear at the start of conference play. But you still want to see your program and your players trend up, and that's not really happening right now for the Rams. So let's see what they can do. Now, on the other side, again, as I said, this was a game that you could tell Sundance wanted. I knew that. I said that last night on here. This was a game that he was going to want. Was he going to be able to get a response out of his guys? And he was. And they were all over it. They played good defense. Maybe they just rode the wave of his emotion, his speech, the crowd, who knows, to shoot the way they shot. Because I mentioned the team shooting percentage, but Caden Bennett He's a 29% shooter coming into today, 29% from three, and he hit 6 of 8. Okay. So 29% shooters, 6 out of 8 is 75%. 29% shooters don't normally make 75% of their shots. Okay. And so look, sometimes you just have an out of body experience, and that's kind of that road that was all Wyoming needed here. And then it got contagious because Harrico made 2 of 3, Dennis made 2 of 4. Like, this is a team that makes 5 per game pretty much, right? They're usually in that 5 for 19 range, and tonight they go 12 for 25. So, I mean, if you take away as I look at their twos, they shot 7 of 18 for the game from twos, 7 for 18. They only attempted 18 twos all game. That's wild. Again, not a lot of possessions in the game. So what were the possessions? 55. So we had looked at the possessions in the other game, and it was in the mid 60s. So, some extra possessions there for Wyoming, but with some fouls and whatever. But rebounding, even. Turnovers, well played, 9 and 10, not substantial enough to make a difference. But Bennett with 22 and 10 rebounds, like game of the year for that young man, Cade Bennett, good for him. Walker with 10, it wasn't a standout, but didn't turn the ball over. Meyer only 5, they didn't even need a lot from him. Dennis was 16, made 8 out of 8 from the free throw line. But look, good defense by Wyoming. I think some of that is attributed to CSU's stagnant offense, but they just made shots. And again, Sundance and his crew, I'm sure, was really thrilled with this one. Yeah, there's no doubt, Drew, better than the last few games. As you pointed out, those numbers, or the bench was big, without a doubt. I don't know that I had anything else on this game on there. I want to see. Yeah, Olin likes a 4 out, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I agree with that. Okay. Yeah, I mean, we know this, Z Mountain, that college is about who's got the biggest checking count. It's bad news for Mexico. Yeah, it just, that's kind of the way it is for any school that's not in the Big Ten or the SEC. Like, you're going to get outbid for stuff, right? It just is what it is. So, I mean, look, good job by Wyoming, 4 and 7. CSU a really, really disappointing 3 and 8 in conference. I mean, those two teams right now, I guess 9 and 10. I think that one or both may be able to leapfrog UNLV, and Fresno's still in that mix too, in that, I guess, 8, 9, 10 batch, clearly ahead of the last two, but also clearly behind the top 5. Boise would be in there, I guess, at 6, just because they have 5 wins at this point, but who knows? We'll see. So look, great game. Again, that's one that will last, and we'll get the rematch in Fort Collins in a few weeks, and I would expect CSU to be ready there. But again, I'm interested to see how they look here moving forward, because actually I think they're off in the midweek here coming up. Maybe that's what they need. They need a little bit of a break, and maybe they can kind of restructure some things, because that not their finest tonight. And I think any Ram fan will tell you the same thing. All right, let me go for a minute on this game. I watched about 5 minutes of it. I didn't watch the first half, and then I went to it because actually Air Force seemed to be in it at the half, only down by 5. 44-39. And then I put it on a few minutes into the second half. I think it was like a 12-2 run for Fresno. When I put it on, they got up by 20, and I turned it off. I mean, there's not much to really look at here. Hyde-Brader had 14 against his former team. Douglas had 21, made 5 threes. The Bulldogs make 12 threes. Both teams shot it okay from deep. But, I mean, look, Air Force is just kind of playing out the string here. There's not much really to talk about for them. But it's a road win for Fresno. They don't have a lot of those in the last few years anywhere. So you'll take a road win. They now have 4 conference wins, and they'll have the opportunity to get a few more. And they might even be down a game. I don't think they're 4 and 7. They might actually be 4 and 6. So good job by Wahlberg. I mean, this is one you have to have. You don't want to be the team that loses the Air Force. I don't know if anybody will, but you certainly don't want to be the team that does it. And so they didn't. They took care of business. They were off here in the midweek, so had to figure they'd be ready to play. And as we'll talk about in a little bit, they have a big game coming up for them on Tuesday night. Now, obviously, look, a lot of you are here for the talk about the early game. And we all know, again, as I said before, seems like it was 3 days ago, right, or a day and a half ago. But, in fact, it was just the early game today, real early tip. And I'm not surprised the way it started out, pretty sluggish as the teams kind of had just woken up, right? And it was a pretty sloppy, rugged offensive start for both squads. Then it kind of kicked in and we got a really good first half. I was amazed it was tied at the half because the Aztecs had pretty much controlled the play. I guess the technical, there was some discussion about that. The Goreville draws a tee, probably a light tee by Tommy Nunez. Not shocking. We've seen Nunez go rogue before. As we all know, not the most super crew in Logan for this game, just what you get in this part of the country. I've said it before, said it again. On weekends, this is what you get in this part of the country, okay? I don't care if you're in the Mountain West. I don't care if you're in the Pac-12. I don't care if you're in the freaking the global conference of all global conferences, okay? In this part of the country, you will struggle for good officials on a Saturday, okay? And so we got an average crew, I guess you would say they were average, right? And that was probably a light tee. Again, it's tough to say. It looked in live motion like he said something. On the replay, you couldn't really tell that because you didn't catch him physically like moving his mouth and jawing. I will assume, and I know what happens when you assume. You can be wrong and look like a fool, but I will assume that Nunez called that not for just like nodding and nodding and making a facial expression at somebody, but for actually saying something. Like Nunez has done enough games that I would hope that that's what that was. But anyway, it changed the momentum a little bit. But again, like as some people were, as I was said to a few fans who just couldn't let it go, like, look, you lost 2 points in a technical, but they're going to get the ball anyway. So it wasn't a 4-point turnaround. They were getting the ball anyway. The Goreville just made a shot. So they were coming down with possession. So they had the ball anyway. Your defense didn't step off the floor and allow them to score because you got a tee. So it cost you 2 points. Now, in the grand scheme of things, down the stretch, did that matter? Of course it did, but so do 500 other plays over the course of a game, right? The officials weren't super. I don't think they were supremely one-sided. They missed calls both ways. I can't remember all of them. Yes, the foul that fouled B.J. Davis out towards the end was a bad call. And obviously that stuff's magnified at the end of the game, and when it fouls one of your better guys out, bad call. But, there was one, I think it was Simmons. He drove to the hole. There's probably 8 minutes left. Falslev kind of, ducked his body out of the way, and they called a shooting foul. Falslev didn't touch him, right? Simmons makes 2 free throws there. So, like, that stuff happens. They make bad calls, all right? Like, it wasn't egregious one way or the other. And if it was slightly slanted towards Utah State, that's what happens in college basketball. You get home cooking. Okay. So, and again, this is not indicative of all Aztec fans. I am not doing that. I'm not painting that picture because it's not, because most of them were fair and objective, talking about how they lost the game, what they could have done better, happy with the effort, down 2 starters, this against us, and we still had a shot to win, all accurate. That's what you should talk about, right? But for those that can't let it go, it's like, man, just let's focus on something else. Anyway, okay. So, yeah, crazy because all of a sudden then Utah State just kind of, maybe the Aztecs wore down a little bit. I think there's a combination of that. You got some good adjustments from Calhoun because early on in the first 30 to 35 minutes, there were hardly any open looks at all for Utah State, like hardly any at all. Just textbook defense. You know what the Aztecs are going to do, right? And I wasn't even thinking about this last night when I was talking about the matchups. You're going to put Bird on Falslev. You're going to put Davis on Collins. I mean, it really doesn't matter because the Aztecs switch almost everything anyway, and they're good enough and coached well enough that whoever's guarding whoever is going to be okay 90+% of the time, right? And you saw that today, and it makes such a huge difference when you do it well. And they're drilled in it. It's drilled into them. They practiced it. They know how to hand off switches and perfect them so that they don't have guys running free. Calhoun makes some tweaks to it. You get guys slipping screens, and then they get a little confused. tic-tac-toe with some passes here. You get an El Amin open three in the corner. He buries it. You get Templin slipping and then a little pop shot from 7 feet and he hits it. So those are the little tweaks that Calhoun and staff make that can offset the pressure that's really kind of getting to you as an Aggie offensive player, right? Because it was impacting them early on in the game. So good job by Calhoun and staff. I mean, look, the fact is down the stretch, let me put these up here for a minute. The Aggies made their shots and the Aztecs did not. And really that was kind of the difference in the last few minutes when the lead flipped hands and then the Aggies they didn't really stretch it out. But Collins, 3 for 14, was not very efficient with 5 rebounds, and he made a big 3 late, huge 3 late. Drake Allen, 7 turnovers. I mean, that's a byproduct of that incredible San Diego State defense. 18 turnovers for the Aggies as a team, and he had 7 of them. It's way too many for your point guard. Falslev, only 8 points, but he only took 7 shots, so he wasn't forcing stuff, and he had 6 rebounds and 3 assists. So, it's funny because last night I kept saying how he always finds a way to impact the game, and he did. He didn't do it to the extent that he normally does. He still did, but I think, if you would tell Aggie fans you only got 8 from Falslev and 12 from Collins, you'd think, crap, we're in trouble. But look, he got 13 from El Amin and 8 boards is huge. And then Templin with his game of the year today, 18 on 7 for 10 shooting and 7 rebounds. He was all over the place. As we all know, he's a guy that he gets under your skin if you love him, if he's on your team. You hate playing against him if you're on the opposing team. And he was just on point today. He hit a couple threes. He had good touch around finishing around the rim tonight, which he doesn't always do. And again, 7 boards. Pretty effective. I don't think he stood out as a poor defender today. He was in there mucking it up, being physical, doing what Calhoun and staff wanted him to do. So, because Gary Clark, not super effective, 7 minutes. He did have 1 offensive board and put back for his only 2 points. King, I said last night you weren't going to get much from King today. He had 1 point in 12 minutes. So not a lot from the bench except Templin, but man, he was huge. On the flip side, Waters, he was the guy for the Aztecs because Bird, 3 for 12 and 1 for 6, not good enough. Of course, we know he impacts the game defensively, and that's all well and good. But when BJ's struggling, which he was, so both of those guys went 3 for 12, so that's 6 for 24. That's pretty poor. You take 57 shots from the field, you make 23 of them. Both teams, you look at the shooting percentages, they're 40, 41%. You take 57 shots and 24 of them are from Davis and Bird. That's, close to over 40% of the shots from 2 guys, and he only makes 6 and combined for 15 points. You can't win like that. DeGorbo made a couple shots. Simmons played really well today. They missed Harrington. Compton was not as much of a factor as I thought. They got bonus money in the first half from Odin, and then he kind of tailed off. The Waters thing was interesting because, of course, he had that play where he like double landed right on people's feet, and some Aztec fans were upset because there was no foul and there was one earlier. The difference was they ran into the shooter before. This one, did he land on a foot first of an Aggie player? He did. But, they didn't slide under him, okay? He kind of landed, jumped forward and landed a little bit, but where it really happened was when he fell back and landed on his own player. I think it was Guath, and that's when he really tweaked his ankle. Now, that was unfortunate because he missed 5-ish, 6 minutes then, and that's when they kind of went into a funk here and nobody picked up the slack. So that was clutch. Otherwise, maybe they ran out of steam a little bit. That's where missing Waters for 6 minutes hurts, and not having Harrington, having that extra guy and a half in there would have made a huge difference in the game there. Maybe the altitude, but you have to credit Utah State. Okay. And as I said earlier, the tweaks from Calhoun, making the shots down the stretch. They didn't shoot the 3 well at all, but they made them when it counted. They got a big one from Collins, like I said. They also got a big one from El Amin, and I guess that was it. Those were the 2 that they needed late. And, and then they took care of things. I mean, look, they were up 7, And then Waters makes 2 free throws and hits a 3 to cut it to 2. And just like that, we got a 1-possession game, but they closed it out. They did what they needed to do, and they create a 3-way tie here. So somebody said, can you give me a ranking? I don't think it's fair to do it right now until after Wednesday, because the Aztecs have had a home game here between these 3 teams, and now the Aggies have had a home game here between these 3 teams. And now on Wednesday night, the Lobos will get their shot to even it out, okay? They'll each have one home game against the other, and then obviously they'll have a road game against the other. In terms of before we get to that, and I'm not going to assume New Mexico will win, because they'll be favored at home, but it won't be easy, okay? But looking at the rest of what they've done, their other loss at this point is, Utah State's is the UNLV, worst of the 3. New Mexico's at Boise. I don't want to say that's a bad loss, but relative to the others and what Boise is right now, it's not a good loss. It's in the middle, okay? But Utah State's already won at Boise, as I pointed out here. And San Diego State's loss at Grand Canyon is not bad, because Utah State's already lost there too, and New Mexico hasn't gone there yet. So I would give the edge at this point to San Diego State, because New Mexico hasn't beaten either of them yet, and their loss isn't as good as San Diego State's is. So let's give the slight edge to San Diego State here. They didn't do them. They didn't. How do I want to say this here? No shame in what took place today, right? Good game, well played college game. Could have gone either way for 40 minutes, and the home team won. Did they get a break or two? I don't know. You make your own breaks, right? They made the shots down the stretch. The Aztecs kind of wore out a little bit, all right? Credit the winning team here. And there's no shame in losing the game if you're San Diego State, okay? You'll get your chance at them in Viejas in a few weeks, all right? Until then, you got to take care of your business, all right? It shouldn't really hurt them from a bubble perspective, because all it is a lost opportunity, all right? It's their second conference loss. I think if again, I know we're projecting a lot here. They'd have to win at Boise. They'd have to beat Nevada at home. But if they do those things and they win at CSU, all they have to do is win their home games, and then they're fine, okay? Even if they lose at the Pit, because they've already gone here and they've already gone to GCU. And they've already beat one at Nevada. So if you take care of your home games and you don't have any slip-ups, you finish 17-3. And if you do that, you're going to win the league, right? Because, unless New Mexico runs the table, okay? But you go 17-3, you got a pretty darn good shot to win the league title and get an at-large bid. And so that's what your goal is. You have 9 games left. You're 9-2 right now. You go 9-1 to finish. And wait, what are they? What the heck am I talking about? Go 8-1 to finish, gets you to 17-3. Okay, they have the roster to do it. I would assume that Harrington's going to come back soon. Okay, Gwath, no idea, but I think at this point they're not that they're not counting on Gwath, but whatever they get from Gwath is like bonus. I honestly think they believe that. Now, to reach their ceiling in March, yeah, they need Gwath to be there and what we thought we were going to get from him in the preseason, okay? But first things first, they're trying to win a conference title. They haven't won one in the last 2 years. Remember, they're 0-4. So last year in the conference, they want to get another championship or 2, right? And so first things first, get Harrington back, win the league is their goal right now, okay? Someone says Templin here is trying to trick the refs into stuff. Yeah, I agree, Lonzo. You had every opportunity to win and failed to lay the hammer. Credit Utah State for battling back. Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, Spencer. Yeah, I agree with that too. The double T, who was it? It was the Goreville. It wasn't the Goreville. It was Compton. And who was it? It was Compton and it was Clark, right? It was Compton and Clark. Yeah, that was soft too. I guess maybe what they were trying to do was just like set the tempo at that point for like, all right, we're not going to let this thing escalate here. But yeah, that was totally soft. So we saw 4 Ts today. The one from McIver, I kind of ripped him before for it, but it wasn't completely like necessary to call that either, okay? And then the 3 that we saw in this game, they were all soft, frankly. I don't know if this is like something that the the supervisors of the officials have been cracking down on, I really don't know. Yeah, Timothy, I don't think you're going to see Joe Scott back on the sidelines with Air Force. I'm sure he's not completely bummed about that either, but I don't think you'll see him back. Yeah, there's no doubt they do struggle to find a rhythm without LZ at the point, and that's the thing. Like I don't want to say I've been critical of Newman, but he has not been like what they thought. Look, he played 20 minutes today. He did have 5 assists, so you'll take that in 20 minutes. I mean, you'll take that. But they just didn't, they didn't look smooth, right? They didn't look smooth. Yeah, Mike's. We've someone said this before. They definitely get reviewed. 100% they do. Okay, and yeah, like they can be taken off of games, right? That they have scheduled ahead of time and lose games for certain conferences if they do poor enough. Like I don't know that we've really heard it much here lately, but you'll see often like X gets taken off of Big 12 games because he's done this or that, right? It happens. It certainly happens. Carson Templin turned into Leitner. He certainly was today. There's no doubt. And he draws the ire of fans for sure. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I did, Benjamin. I did give the Lobos is that what I said? 10% chance to get to the tourney. Then it was fool's gold. Now it's on it. I mean, listen, Benjamin. So here's the thing. I mean, because you seem angry. I said 10% chance to get to the tourney. I didn't see it on the roster. And as good as I thought Olin was, I just didn't think they could do it. So there's no doubt. I don't know what the fool's gold comment was. You'll have to refresh my memory on that. And I mean, just because I say they have an unathletic roster, like you're picking and choosing like what I'm saying here, right? Like if you think they have an athletic roster, you need to watch some other teams because they don't. I'm also saying that they've exceeded expectations, that they've played great basketball. So you can cherry pick what you want, and that's fine. I think if you're a fair and objective fan, you would agree that they're not the most athletic roster. But like that's a compliment because they're getting incredible results out of a roster that's not the most athletic. So, yeah, I think most people in the preseason would have not had New Mexico on the radar for getting into the NCAA tournament. So, find me somebody who had find a non-New Mexico fan who had New Mexico in the NCAA tournament preseason. How about that? There's your homework assignment for me, Benjamin. Find me a non-New Mexico fan in the preseason that had New Mexico in the NCAA tournament. All right, do that for me and then report back, okay? Yeah, Spencer, 18 turnovers, but yeah, they did clean up in the last few minutes. Yeah, those were some of those tweaks and adjustments that I talked about by Calhoun and staff. Maybe that's stuff that they were trying to implement at halftime. It just takes a little bit longer, right? It's difficult to simulate that athleticism and pressure in practice when you don't have the same type of athletes that San Diego State does against your guys. It's tough to simulate that, right? And so it took them a while to get kind of loosened up and make those tweaks. And then the last 2 TV timeout segments, they kind of did. Yeah, I agree, Steve. It's very tough to beat the top teams in the league twice because, it's difficult to win on the road, right? Coaches here can be successful in any league, 100%. We've seen that before, too, and we'll continue to see that. Okay, let's see. What else do I want to see? Yeah, I agree with that, Lonzo, that Compton did seem bothered by the mask. I thought that, too, at some point, which is a shame. He's been really good lately. And so, that's disappointing that he had to play with that. But, he airball. Simmons did airball the free throw. Yeah, New Mexico probably should sell that game out. Good attendance there, Drew, for Wyoming, over 6,000. Way, way more than what they've been drawing otherwise in the AA. So very, very good. Timothy says the Lobos now have the 4th longest home court winning streak in the country. That will be tested if they want to keep that going on Wednesday night. They're going to have to play well. Let's see, 18-4. Well, Jared, do you mean 16-4? Because they don't play 22. Remember, there's only 20. So 16. You think 16-4 wins the league? And yeah, the Aztecs do have right now, based on schedule, the Aztecs have the edge. I did want to say too. I don't think it'll be close to a sellout. I hope it is for TV purposes and all of that. Jared, 9 p.m. on a Wednesday. Some people can't attend because of work. It's late, all that stuff. I get that. I wanted to point out before, because I had the odds update last week, and I said that the odds makers had Utah State slightly favored. Before last night's games, I had checked again, and it completely shifted. And it's weird why, because nobody had lost in that time from last week to Friday, but they had San Diego State had pretty much moved down to like plus 115. So they were close to like even money to win the title. Utah State was plus 200 and New Mexico was plus 250. And then they had Grand Canyon at 11-1 and Nevada at 15-1. And then they had removed UNLV and they had put Boise on there at 100-1. This was before last night. So Boise's going to get booted off of there. Next time they put that up and I see it, they're only going to have those top 5 teams. Nevada and GCU will probably stay where they are in that 10 to 15-1 range. And then it's those 3 at the top, clear. But I don't think it'll change much after today, which sounds weird, even though Utah State won. They may creep a little bit closer together. But look, they were a 7 or 8 point favorite in this game. They were expected to win the game. San Diego State missing Harrington. We all know they're missing Glatt, but you got to win your home games here. And all this would have done is put a complete like hammer lock on the league for the Aztecs with a lead and already have beaten both of the other 2 teams at the top. Now we got a 3-way tie. None of them have won on the road against the other 2 top teams. And if nobody can do that, then it's going to come down to who else can avoid a bad loss, right? Because like that's kind of where we are right now. And that's where Utah State's at a disadvantage because they lost a home game to UNLV. And New Mexico slightly at a disadvantage because they lost at Boise. So that's where the Aztecs have a little bit of an edge right there. You like New Mexico on Wednesday. Not sure how the Aggies come back down from earth after this one. Not a buzzer beater, but an emotional win. Yeah, look, it's going to be a big game, but it will be tough for them to kind of match what they had today. They were fired up for this game, national TV, big crowd. Rivalry opponent, not a rivalry opponent, but an opponent who they respect and is always a battle at the top of the league. Yeah, Drake Allen turnover problems are a worry. They should be. That's way too many. Now, look, he's playing one of the 2 best defenses in the league today. But, yeah, absolutely, Aggie. Fun year to watch. Olin is a good coach. Wednesday will be fun. No doubt about it. Yeah, I'm not sure who had any team in the tournament besides San Diego State and Utah State preseason, maybe Boise. Yeah, agreed with that. Very, very true. And I didn't even have Boise. I was actually, and I haven't even said that lately on here. I do like gloating sometimes when I'm right because I do take heat sometimes when I'm wrong. But going back to preseason, not on here because we weren't doing these shows yet, but on my pod and maybe on like an old stream I did with Steve, I had said that if there was a team I was down on, it was Boise. I just didn't trust Andrews and a couple other parts in there. And I hate to be right about that, but I was. And I thought the 3rd place team was up for grabs, and I didn't think it would be New Mexico. And even though I should have maybe thought it would be Nevada, I don't think I did. I actually said it would be Grand Canyon, and I'm not too far off there. And obviously I had the first 2. I don't even remember really what order. I don't know that I picked a winner. I just said they would be the top 2, and I thought the 3rd spot would be open, and maybe I had Nevada 4th, but and New Mexico 5th. I can't remember anymore. But yeah, I wasn't really even sold on Boise, and I didn't know if we'd get 3 teams in. So yeah, that's that. But anyway, new coaches, new team. Yeah, absolutely, Adam. I mean, for a new team, and I mean, it's incredible. And so he deserves full credit for this. I mean, he deserves all the praise that he gets, all the interest from other teams and coaches that he gets, because entirely new roster. And they are 18-4. And there's plenty of other teams that had more back in other conferences across the country that are not 18-4. So you got to appreciate and respect what Olin has done, and everybody does. Like, everybody knows it. Okay, this guy was on people's radars last year at UCSD, and he's pretty much replicated what he did last year in here. It's just a better league. He leveled up, better league, better competition. Didn't matter. He's still out coaching teams and coaches, and doesn't mean he can't lose games. He lost a couple games last year with UCSD too. It happens. That's what basketball is. It's not an undefeated sport. But he certainly gives his team a chance to win every night out, puts them in a position to succeed. And man, that's all you can ask for as a fan of a team, like knowing when you step on the floor, you're going to have a chance to win. Okay. Even if you look back on that Nebraska game, a team who's ranked, and I don't even know what they're ranked, but they suffered their first loss of the year the other night without like 2 starters in a 1-possession game against Michigan, who's one of the top 5 teams. So Nebraska's doing incredible. And how bad the Lobos were in the first half of that game, they weren't even playing well at that point in the season. They were getting smoked in the first 20 minutes of that night in the MTE, and they came back and made a pretty good showing of themselves in the second half. And even then, like, you should be like, yeah, all right. I mean, look back now and say, pretty good showing against a team that's going to be like a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament at this rate. So it's just remarkable what he's done. We all know it. And we're lucky to have him right now in the conference. And I think we're really spoiled. Like, look, let's face it. We all know that the conference isn't as good as it's been the last 2 or 3 years when we got 4, 6, and 4 teams in. We're not going to get that, barring these 3 teams winning every game the rest of the year, except against each other. And then like GCU or Nevada winning the conference tournament. And even then, everything would have to break exactly right for us to sneak 4 in. I don't think that'll happen, and it's not a big deal if it doesn't, because we should freaking enjoy these 3 teams that are really good. They all bring different skill sets to the table. You know, you have the Aztecs getting back to their old form of defense. You have a Utah State team that has like 2 guys that are player of the year caliber candidates. Neither one of them played well today, and they still get a huge home win against a very good team because they have depth and balance and they can score in many different ways. And then you have a team that's as well coached as any in the country, pound for pound. They have an incredible home court advantage, a great heady player and a freshman in Hall. Bouillon, I know people want to rip the fact that he's 23, but look, who cares about that, right? Because the fact is he going to be at New Mexico next year? I wouldn't bet on that, maybe, but I wouldn't bet on it. So let's forget about the fact that he's 23 and they're calling him a freshman. He's a guy who came over from Europe, like tens of, not hundreds, but tens of other players across the country. And he's, so let's appreciate what we have with these 3 teams at the top. And Nevada and GCU are no slouches either. So it's going to be an interesting last 5 weeks, and the same thing with the conference tournament. So what's up, Derek? Big fan of the show. Thank you for commenting. Not to Derek. Yeah, I had an interesting back and forth, and it was a long one with a different Derek this afternoon, who just could not let go of the technical that the official called against the Goreville. And this will be my weekly, maybe monthly reminder to, if you cannot watch games without being like, accepting losses, you shouldn't get that invested, right? You just shouldn't, because it happens sometimes. The officials make bad calls and they screw things up, okay? If you can't accept that, find another hobby or just disassociate or become neutral or something like that, okay? Yeah, John, you got in there too. I appreciate that, and I mean, look, some people, they'll just never give in. I honestly think that if there was video of the Goreville saying something, physically saying something, he would have still said that he didn't say anything. So you're just never going to convince some people. They'll tell you that the sun sets in the east. So it is what it is. Okay, what do we got here? Let's see. I got a few more minutes. I've been at it for over an hour. Quickly, let's talk about Tuesday. Not the most riveting slate. And I'm not going to break down the game in the pit because that's on Wednesday. We'll do that on Tuesday night after the games. They don't only bring players with them. We brought Hal with him, and he's hurt. He had a couple guys who were committed to him at UCSD, Tannett and Hall, and they came with him, but they didn't play with him at UCSD. So let's see. Yeah, it is similar to that. There's no doubt. Yeah, because nobody gave Utah State a chance 2 years ago either. And look what they did. So absolutely. Let's see. Yeah, of course their fans get worked up early. This is not breaking news, Pac fan. They get worried and they don't like, they want to pick and choose what they want to support and all that stuff. But yeah, Utah State has a tough path at the pit, at Viejas, at Nevada, and they have to host GCU. I mean, you would expect them to win that game, but you never know. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it wasn't bad enough to say that's why you lost the game. Okay. Yeah, I agree with that, Derek, that on a neutral, you would probably lean the way the game played out today. I mean, look, it's just one game and things change all the time, but certainly over 40 minutes on a neutral, if they played in the conference tournament, with Harrington. Forget about Gwath. Obviously with Gwath, yes, but even with just Harrington, I would give a slight edge now to San Diego State. But who knows? Because look, maybe Calhoun, we'll see when they go play at the Ajas. If the pressure D doesn't have its impact in the first half because Utah State already has some of these things built into the game plan, well, then it's Dutcher's turn to adjust, right? If they're slipping screens and doing different things to get open looks, well, then it's Dutcher's turn to make an adjustment. Okay. Yeah, I agree with that, Down. Well said. Accepting losses and giving credit to the other team is what separates true fans from casual fans. And you're right. Every fan base has this problem. So it just happened to be a couple San Diego State fans today because they lost. Let's be honest. And I'm sure you know this, and that's what you're saying, Down. Had Utah State lost today, some of them would have said, well, this or this or this, instead of giving credit. And most of the Aztec fans, and I even told this other Derek this in the chat today on social media, but most Aztec fans were saying, look, we played well, and it's I'm bummed, but I'm encouraged because we played well and we just didn't finish, and we lost without two starters on the road. I'll take my chances when we play them at home. So yeah, most have a fair kind of level-headedness to them. It's just they don't all do it. And yeah, Derek, it's amazing. Alan, what did he say? He was 1 for his last 13 on threes, and then what did he do today? Let me look at it here. He was 0 for 3. So he's not shooting the ball well at all. And he probably needs to almost bag it, although you almost need him to shoot one to keep the defense honest, but you got to make one eventually. So, okay. Anyway, let me get to this quickly here just for a few minutes. The best game, I guess, in theory on paper then is the first one up at Extra Mile. Oh, this is almost my birthday. Tuesday, my birthday. So, don't forget to wish me happy birthday since I don't know who else will. But anyway, at Extra Mile, Nevada at Boise, Air Force Grand Canyon, shouldn't be much to watch there. And then, so I like the times are staggered, 2 at 9 Eastern, 2 at 11 Eastern. So we got Nevada, Boise to focus on early, and then doubleheader late. I mean, Wyoming at San Diego State can be not pretty there, I wouldn't think. The Aztecs off a loss. Wyoming feeling a little good about themselves. But when those two played in Laramie, Wyoming had nothing going offensively because of the Aztec defense. They couldn't do anything. So I wouldn't expect them to score 60 in that game either. And I'd expect an angry Aztecs team. So that might get out of hand by early, mid-second half there. And then actually probably for me the most fun game to watch will be UNLV at Fresno, just because UNLV is kind of like watching I hate to compare it to like a car wreck, maybe not a car wreck, but maybe like a car doing donuts in the ice or the snow or something like that. Some Boise, GCU, San Diego State, and Fresno. Yeah, well, we'll see if the Lobos do it for you. So that'll be interesting. I like watching Fresno play. So I'll be interested to watch the Fresno and UNLV game. Thank you, Down. I appreciate that. Happy early birthday. I double down on your point. All you're saying is you and many others have been down on UNM. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing. I mean, don't watch the games on your birthday. Yeah, I know. It's. Everybody would say the same thing, Benjamin. It's a compliment. You should be okay with that. Remember your fan base a few weeks into the season was ripping Olin and saying how it was the worst roster in 20 years. So I don't know. Okay. I'm going to get out of here. Sun Cruiser. Appreciate them. Bottom. Another at Mountain West BNN. Another night in the Mountain West. Appreciate all you guys being here. Your comments. Both nights, last night, tonight, all that good stuff. Subscribe. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your family, everybody. Subscribe. Buy some Sun Cruiser, okay? Support them or sponsor. Tuesday we'll be back for sure for a late night, but that's all good. And then, of course, the big one on Wednesday. I'll talk about that one a little bit there too, and then I'll break down what we watched Tuesday. Great day today, great day of action, great weekend. We're over the halfway point now, 11 games in. It's going to start coming fast and furious here, so buckle in. We got another top showdown on Wednesday, and we'll be here to break it down Tuesday first, and then break that one down Wednesday. So thanks for being here, everybody. Appreciate all of you guys. Keep coming around. Another night in the Mountain West. Signing off. See ya.